Welcome to another episode of Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. Please join our experienced and knowledgeable panel of hosts as we explore the great mysteries of our time: Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and unexplained phenomena.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our show. Tonight, it's Mike and I's absolute pleasure to have Shelly Covington-Montana on the show. Now, I like Shelly. I'll declare my bias straight away. She's not only a good friend, I respect her work. Because, like Amy, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, she's a boots-on-the-ground researcher. She's somebody who goes out into the field. Her first thought is to do field research. It's obviously something I've done all my life, and I'm passionate about it. And so I like that. I like the fact that she goes out, does analysis, and gives qualitative results. So we're going to talk to Shelly tonight. So welcome, Shelly, to the show.
Hey, Adam. Thanks. Hi, Mike.
Now, what we're going to do tonight is, we're delighted to have you on. I mean, what we're going to do tonight is talk about a number of different things that you're interested in. But first of all, let's start with a bang. What's your single most exciting moment in Bigfooting to date, Shelly?
That's a super hard question because I've been extremely fortunate to have had a lot of extremely important and exciting things happen to me. I would say I would have to put it in it's hard. I could say my top three, which I feel are equally important to each other, and one of them, and probably the very first most important thing that ever happened to me, is when I met you, Adam, and how you were so open and welcoming to help me and present my wildlife DNA kit to the Bigfoot world. That was a jumping off point for the kit itself, and you got it. You understood me, and I was floored by how easy it was for me to talk to you, and you really listened, and I'll never forget that, and I'm always been grateful for that. And so
no, it's an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. I think, in today's Bigfoot community, especially like the Facebook, community, which is vast and huge, we get lost in the emotional attachment to what we think is or is not Bigfoot, and it causes, separation, and people lose the focus of why we really are here, or some of us anyway, and I wanted to be considered someone, if I wanted to talk to a lot of people and meet a lot of people that I felt were contributing to, what we're trying to do. And so I not only wanted to help myself get to the facts and to those important details, but that what is or is not Bigfoot, but I wanted to surround myself with that type of person. And, 90% of us that are in the field are not scientists. We're everyday, girls and guys that are trying to, find this mystery and find out what it is. And, a lot of us are anyway, but we're not scientists. And I just kept thinking, what can I do to help me? My family is a law enforcement family, and I knew my parents would, want me to go in that direction if I'm going to go out hunting a monster, basically. But
yeah.
I would put you at the top. So.
No, well, thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. And I want people to understand exactly what's in this DNA kit. The thing I like about it is, and I think it brought you into the public eye. Not that you weren't already doing a lot of field research, but it made you a name, if you like, at the time, because it was handy and useful and people could relate to it. So do you want to say what's in the kit and why it's useful? Don't want massive detail, but just a little bit so people can understand. That would be great.
Well, sure. Well, the thing is it's lightweight, like you said. But what I had done, and the kit has actually gone through about, I want to say 4 or 5, and it's fixing to go through another change of things that I've added and what I felt were useful. Now, I call it a wildlife DNA kit first and foremost because it is not necessarily meant to prove anything about Bigfoot. It's to help people disprove or to, figure out what isn't Bigfoot is our goal. Because we could search forever and never find Bigfoot evidence. But people always assume. So how best can we figure this out? And I basically went to the medical community and to the law enforcement community about how to go about this, at a reasonable cost so that every other person could afford it if they wanted. And basically it's overdone, but it has everything inside the kit is medical grade now. It wasn't in the very beginning, it was close, but I've been ordering everything that's in the kit by bulk and putting these kits together. Everything in the kit is medical grade and it's sterile. So you have things like your tweezers, gauze, gloves, face mask. You have liquid containers, like a urine sample container if you want to collect feces. It's not made specifically like, oh, this is specifically to collect, feces. It's all there for your needs. So, like the hair you could put either in a couple of different containers. Also, what is important to me that has been updated on the kit is when you are collecting what would be considered DNA. Now, wildlife DNA is completely different from human DNA, but I wanted it to be where it could serve as both. When you hear these things like human contamination or things like that, when human comes involved or unknown, in law enforcement, when we're dealing with human DNA, whoever's collecting that DNA at a crime scene, let's say, they have to give up, which is already on file, a hair sample and a DNA sample.
And I think one of the... Just to interject. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. There's a point I want to make. I know you're very passionate about your DNA kit, but one of the things that I thought was important that people should understand before you go any further is that DNA people often associate with being expensive, but these kits are affordable. Eh? How much did they cost to put them together?
Well, I'll tell you this. It doesn't cost me as much as I charge, but then again, I have to order 500 of everything.
No, that's all right.
And you know what I mean? So I charge around $30 per kit, but, they started out less, but now, because it's medical grade and they're all sterile, and I put in like 2 sets of gloves, instead of 1 set now. So they've gone up a bit, but I try to keep them around $30 to $35. And if I find, that one thing isn't as efficient as another, I kind of change that out on the next order. But one thing I wanted to say that's important that I put in here is a buccal swab, so that you can take your own DNA as well, and when it's needed. And then, of course, there's instructions, and then there's people like Cindy Dawson's information. I do give out your information when people are talking about hair analysis and things like that. But basically, it's just super lightweight, it's affordable, and it's meant for wildlife DNA and human DNA collection.
Yeah, and I really like it. I think it's a great innovation in field research. I think it's a good idea. Have you ever had your DNA tested, Shelly?
I have not, but I'm ready for that to happen.
You should have it done. I had literally the biggest shock of my life. Literally. Not in a bad way. Yeah, I did my DNA, and I found out I was mostly a Viking. Apparently that doesn't surprise a lot of my friends, but I am.
I'm not surprised at all.
I'm only 30% English. I'm mostly Viking. Yeah, it was a massive surprise, and of course I teased my mother a lot. I said I thought Uncle Bjorn was just a friend, and she was like, "Shush." You know? In other words, kind of like. No, they're very cool. The DNA kits. Do it, Shelley. I'm dead interested to see what you come out with. I really would.
Oh, I will. I just, you know what? I just got back from almost 4 months in the Pacific Northwest. I think that's now going to be, so I've done the 3 months straight last summer. The summer before that, it was, I think, somewhere around 8 to 10 weeks. And the summer before that, I think it was 6 weeks. And now it's almost 4 months. You know, every summer I try to focus, you know, and get my place, you know, and or go into an area and follow, you know, what's going on as far as reports or sightings. I'm really more interested in sightings now, you know, compared to, you know, reports of what people think might have happened, and they're great. But I was going to say, as far as DNA, it's funny, I always tell Don, probably on the highest end of Neanderthal DNA that human could have, you know. Him and my son have all the physical traits.
Well, it's a really good point. I want to move on from DNA in a minute, but just to tell Don, for those who don't know, he's Shelley's husband. It used to be the case that we didn't think that there was any Neanderthal DNA within our modern day sequence. We now know that we have up to 4% DNA Neanderthal. Right. In fact, I met the other day, he was up to 4%. And Don, me, and other men like us no doubt have a high percentile. But that's for you to investigate. I wanted to turn on to the other two you mentioned. You mentioned there were two other things. What were they, Shelley? I don't want to lose them. What were they? Are the two amazing things exciting things that? Yes.
Well, let's see. Was it 2015, I believe, 15 or 16? I'm sorry, it all runs together. I get so many great events. But when I went to Ape Canyon with Mark Massell, and myself and Abigail,
Bernard.
Can't remember last. Yes.
Is it Abigail Bernard? Yeah.
Yes. We were the first women, and probably the only women, and as far as I know, the only women as of yet, that were invited and made it down to the actual site of Ape Canyon. You know, Mark had discovered the log cabin and the camp there, and which I can attest is there. You know, so for me to make that journey was very emotional. It was dangerous. We had a moment of fright a couple of times, and
why was it dangerous, Shelley?
Why
was it dangerous? Why was it dangerous? Tell us why it was dangerous. What happened?
Oh, well, we went up. I believe it was the first week of June that year, and so at the bottom of the mountain, you know, the weather was great, you know, and of course we're packing not just for a hike, we're packing for research. So all of us were carrying, and I had repacked I don't know how many times. I should have only been carrying about 37 pounds for my weight and my height, and I was carrying, I think, closer to 47 was what the original weight was on my back. And we hiked 6 miles up to our camp, but in the midst of hiking up, it began to snow and rain and got down to 26 degrees. And, of course, Abigail and I carried, you know, our emergency blankets, and, you know, women just, you know, we're detailed-minded. We bring everything we can. And but we weren't, like, I didn't have a winter coat. We were drenched and pretty wet by the time we got to our camp, and that was a little frightful, but we got through it, and instead of sleeping in one tent, Abigail and I got, instead of sleeping in two, we got together and got dried off, and our emergency blankets came out, and all was good. The next day, getting down to the site is definitely not for the faint of heart if you are not used to those kind of environments. I would say it was quite interesting, and it was fun and exciting. I would do it again, but it was fearful to the point where you couldn't be afraid. There was assisted rope climbing. There was what I like to call goat walking or goat climbing, where we're basically on rock's edge, like a rock climber, barely hanging on to tiny bits of ledges of rock. And I got stuck at one point and had to have assistance from Shane Corson with a shovel so I could swing around, because if I hadn't, I'd have fallen and I would have died. I just, and I think everybody got into just a tidge bit of a scary moment. Always tease Gunner, because Gunner lost his footing. We were sliding down part of the mountain, and he slid past me and was going at warp speed, and I was able to grab his. Yeah, I was able to grab his backpack, and to this day, every time we see each other, I'm like, "I saved your life," and he's like, "Yes, you did." So but it was
Did you get some free Sasquatch coffee off him as a result? Because if not, he owes you some. You know that?
Oh yeah. Well, he served us Sasquatch coffee at least.
So what was Shane doing with a shovel? How did Shane help you with a shovel? I'm really intrigued. Sorry to pause it, but I need to know what happened with the shovel. How did that work?
Oh, well, I'm caught on a ledge where I'm basically, I remember Mark saying, okay, at this point, everybody needs to have 3 points of contact at all times. And I thought, okay, yeah, cool, I got it, Well, that 3 points of contact could even mean your cheek of your face. You know what I mean? It was that type of I just think of, the coyote, and the roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote on the rock's face, trying to, not fall and scratching his way back up to the ledge, and that was basically me. And Shane had a shovel, and the only way they could get to me was to lower the shovel, and I could grab a hold of it so that I could swing my body around to be pulled up. So it was definitely the most dangerous thing I've done in a long time.
And when you got to it, you finally got to the place, and obviously this is the site of a famous alleged battle. Did you think, well, the story is more credible, that Bigfoot could have attacked this cabin, or did you go away not impressed? What was your thought, Shelley?
Well, okay, so for me, when it comes to those types of historical events and stories, we'll never be able to talk to the people that were there.
No.
So you can only take it so far as believability, versus fact. I do believe something happened. Do I think that these things were throwing giant, boulders, and I don't know. What I do know that always amazes me when I'm at these historical places, and I've been, I believe, to all of the ones I feel that are important in the history of Sasquatch, or what is been talked about, quite a bit. And what I find always so interesting about them all is, you get these measurements of where the witness was and versus the creatures, and people will give you very accurate distances, because these things, have been studied so much, like Bluff Creek. I went to Bluff Creek this year, Ape Canyon, where this thing stood and where he shot one and such. And it's so much closer than you really realize until you're there. So for me, now the thing was about when we got to the site, when you get there, what you realize is it's right on the edge of the canyon, right on the edge of the river walls where the canyon is. And with erosion over the years, there's been, I believe Mark told me, 10 feet of erosion that is no longer, land that is no longer there. So, but still, it's still really close. I mean, does me being there give it more? I think, I definitely know that the cabin was there. I definitely know there was human existence there from all the things that have been found, in the ground there. Do I believe the entire story? I believe that stories from back in the day could have and were many times embellished a bit. I'll put it that way, simply because it's entertainment. That's what, in the Victorian era, I believe that, wild stories were part of entertainment. So, and plus, if you think about it, when I've interviewed people before when, back in the day when Mike and I had a show, that I'd heard the story one way, and then they get on the show and the story's way better, so.
Good stuff.
I mean?
No, I'm with you on that. No, absolutely. Let's move on to the third thing, because I'm conscious we've only got an hour, and I want to get as much into our little show as we can. So what was your third thing, Shelly?
I will tell you, and there's been a lot of great things happen to me, but the third thing that, and this is important to me, it probably doesn't mean a thing to anybody else, and it just happened. I was at the Texas Bigfoot Conference with Craig Woolheater and his fiancée, Tammy. And I was the first speaker of the day. And then it was, I believe it was Nick, and then Ken and Lyle, and then Dr. Meldrum was the last speaker of the day. And I am on what I call, my Bigfoot or Big Knot tour, which I'm, talk about what really is evidence and what isn't, and how, are we really, pushing our emotional agenda on this? Are we looking for facts? Why are we going in the woods? What is research? And I spoke, and talked about emotion. Stories are stories, and they're wonderful. But really, at the end of the day, they're a story. If we want to be taken seriously by science, and we need help. Honestly, I need help from anybody I can get it from that knows what they're talking about when it comes to science and facts. And at the end of the day, I've always said, if I can get the attention of one scientist, I think I'll be doing my job right. Well, so I did my talk. It went well. I got a lot of great response. Not one person left the room, from what I understand. And then the day goes on, and Dr. Meldrum gets up and he says, first of all, I need to recognize Shelly Montana. She opened this conference exactly the way I've wanted to hear people talk. She is what we've been wanting. She is a true citizen scientist. And that, to me, was the best thing I've heard since I've been in doing this, is that I'm trying, and I'm not a scientist. I'm just a simple girl from Texas. I'm just trying to mimic what I think science would want from us. If they want, we need help. And if you want their attention, you've got to mimic or at least try to do what they tell us will work. What will get their attention. And for him to recognize me like that was the best thing ever. He had lunch with me that day, asked me about the DNA kits. It was just, that's the other one,
So in your talk, I mean, I did have a great time at that conference that Craig and Tam put on. It was when I spoke, I really enjoyed it. But let's be clear on your talk. Jeff is obviously a proponent of the citizen scientist idea, which you clearly agree with. What are you basically saying are you basically saying that we should follow scientific methodology and that's the correct approach we should do? And here are some examples, practical examples about how I do it. Is that seems to me my understanding of what you're saying, or is it something different? If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I'm cool with being wrong.
No,
I just want people to understand what you're saying.
Yes, that's right. I mean, like I said, and that's the part that's so hard for me is I spend thousands of hours in the woods. I spend, my poor tent I've only had it almost 2 years, and it looks like it's 10 years old. I have worn it out, and it's an expensive tent. And my equipment is wearing out. I mean, I put in just 4 months time, I put over 10,000 miles on my truck, but when we get in the woods, what are we really doing? When people come to me, I get people that come to me, and I know they come to you, I know they come to Mike, and the first thing they do, or not the first thing, but a lot of times it's things like, hey, look at this tree structure, or, hey, they make assumptions that, and for me, I always ask, so who told you Bigfoot does that? Because you didn't see him do it. Starts from there for me. But then the hard part is, what really are facts? What really can I take back home and talk about? Like, one of the demonstrations I gave was my experience. I have, the one that I had in 2016, where I had immense amount of tree knocks coming into my camp every night. And there were more than one of them, and there was a footprint found. And then I saw it. And then I come back 6 days later and wake up to shit, excuse my French, stuff flying at a tree next to my head for 30 minutes. I have all of that recorded. I have it all, as much data as I could collect, other than a FLIR footage. But that's a story, and it's a great story. I played it for everybody. I played all the recordings. I'm like, hey, what do y'all think? And they're all like, yeah, that's a great story. I said, exactly. It's a story. Science is, we're beyond, I don't know that we're beyond that, but science expects more than that. And unless you drag in a body, as far as proof goes, like this is what another thing I feel is dangerous. When someone sends in hair, let's say hair analysis, and it goes to somebody who is very educated in what they're doing, and they write a report and say it's unknown. Unknown is a huge, dangerous word in the field of Bigfoot. It automatically means to most people, because we're all looking for Bigfoot, it automatically means Bigfoot. What do people do after that? They don't go any further. What they do is they walk around and they show everybody and tell everybody, hey, I have this piece of hair, and it came back unknown. Well, first of all, hair analysis, for most of what these people or we are doing, it only goes as far as what their education about the hair and wildlife hair is. There's no true test. So what I suggest to people is, number one, you need to be going to unbiased sources. We normally look for people in the Bigfoot community to help us. We need to start reaching out to sources that are not in the Bigfoot community and acting like this is a real science, not this is my emotional attachment. I had a Bigfoot encounter and I've got Bigfoots all the time. I'm a Bigfoot magnet and here's some hair. That is the wrong approach. So for me, it's about, don't stop there. You need to get at least three opinions that all come to the same conclusion before you would ever present it as an actual unknown. Because what people know they know versus what they don't know is a huge thing. Everybody's an expert in the wild. I've been raised in these woods for all my life. I know what goes on here. Well, guess what? Wildlife doesn't care. It's evolving all the time. Just because something doesn't do it in your area doesn't mean it doesn't do it in another. And they don't know any boundaries. So for me, just because some guy said this is unknown doesn't mean he has the full length of knowledge on hair specimens. You know, unknown is a dangerous word. So people aren't going any further. They're complacent. They're good with being told what they want to hear. They're good with their own knowledge. You know, people who walk up on stage and say, I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, but yes, you are saying that. In my ears, that's what you're saying. And I feel that we've gotten into this rut and that we're so about the experience. You know, we're not Daniel Perez said once, we're not researching Bigfoot, we're researching Bigfoot stories. Mm-hmm. And that's a mistake. That's something I want to correct for me. You know, I hope, you know, people that are interested in this species, because the species is what's important. Not me doing a show, not my DNA kit, not, you know, where I get to go. The species is the subject, not how famous we are. And I think people are lost, and I think the agenda has become so emotionally based that we have forgotten why we're here.
Okay. So if you want to crystallize that into, obviously you feel passionate about it, and I agree with you. If you wanted to crystallize that very simply into, I mean, this is a hard question, Shelly, but I'm going to put a hard question to you. One single piece of really good advice to people who are going out field researching right now. Yeah, and you've got like 2 or 3 sentences, right? Bobby's about to go off into do some research, okay? What would you say to him right now?
Be mentally disciplined and leave your emotions at home. Do not lead your research with emotions, because it will lead you down the road of fallacy.
Nice, good. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot, Shelly?
Well, yeah. You know what? That's you know, I was talking about my encounter, and it was on a full moon, and it was on a blue moon, which was odd to me. And at the moment, I just was, you know, the events. It's kind of a long story because it went over a couple of days, but yeah, I saw.
We've got time. Get Don to pour us a couple of tequilas virtually, and we'll listen to this story. Tell us the story.
Well, I've been in the Pacific Northwest for some weeks, and I flew home, but I had another friend here in Texas who wanted to do a couple weeks there, and so 32 hours later, I jump in a vehicle, and we drive straight back, nonstop. Excuse me. And I met up with a couple of friends of mine who I didn't know at the time, but I work with extensively now, a gentleman by the name of Kirk Brandenburg and Nathaniel York, and some other friends. But Kirk and Nathaniel, I try to spend as much time with them when I'm out there as possible, because they're mentally disciplined people, and they're extremely smart and very knowledgeable about a lot of things, you know, the wilderness, but they're also they're just good. They're just good for me, and tell me when I'm wrong, and encourage me, you know. But anyway, so there was, I believe, let me think here. I think there were 5 of us at the time when we got there. The gentleman I was with, Kirk, Nathaniel, and no, there were 6. Anyway, around dusk that evening, and we had gotten there around 6 o'clock, and I think it was it was the next evening. There's a ridge. Now, this area that we're in is in the Cascades. It's a dry area, but yet it's still a pine forest. A lot of lodgepole pines and, meadows and elk and all those things that the Pacific Northwest has. But it's more on the dry side. It's right on the edge of, like, the Yakima County area, or kind of close to it. Anyway, there's a ridge that, now our camp, let me back up. Our camp is down this logging road, I want to say, let me think here, about 5 miles off the main road, which, and then you got to go another mile off of that logging road down to this old hunter's camp that we stay at. And very rarely have I ever seen anybody come back there all the years I've been there now. Anyway, a couple of miles over, there's a ridge. I kind of remember, I think it's 5,500 feet. But anyway, around dusk that next night, off that ridge, I hear this giant, like, pow, almost like a shotgun, or a rifle, on the ridge. And I'm just kind of like, hey, did y'all hear that? And they're like, yeah, but to me, I thought, well, honestly, I'm not thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to go in the woods and see a Bigfoot. That's never going to happen. To be honest with you, that was my attitude. Even though I knew that they could possibly be anywhere, I just never thought I would ever have an experience, to be honest with you, ever. Mm-hmm. And, not like what I'm going to tell you. But anyway, so I hear this huge sound, and ask guys are like, yeah, and we already have recorders on. I'm very good about my equipment. I set up my equipment. I do what I need to do. I'm diligent about that. I'm disciplined with that. And I think I had 3 recorders out. So no worries. So we continue on with whatever we're doing. We're, setting up camp, cooking, doing things. And then I think it was probably 30, 40 minutes later, I hear it again, but it's further down the ridge, coming towards us. And between the ridge and us is a logging road, and on the other side of the logging road is some other old camps, and then scree fields, and then the ridge. And it's very hard terrain to maneuver through once you get on that other side of that logging road. I've gone through there many times. But anyway, then this just continues on and on throughout the evening. Every 30, 45 minutes to an hour. But then, so the guys decide that I'm with, a few of them want to go and take a night walk. And we all have radios. Me and another gentleman decide to stay at the camp while the guys go on their night walk. And then we hear, in the camp, we hear a knock, which is, wood on wood is what it sounds like to me. And I get on the radio and I said, hey guys, did you do that? And they just left maybe 10 minutes. And I knew they had to be on the logging road by then, and or somewhere close. And they were like, no. Did you hear that? They heard it as well. I'm trying to rush through this story because it can be long. Sure. Anyway, sure. We figure out this knock is in between them and us. And anyway, goes on, these knocks, and there's more than one of them. There's one to I believe it's the east, and one to the north. And one's passive, one's aggressive, and then they kind of stop, and we all go to bed. Well, next day we get up, we pull all of our cards for FLIR. We have nothing on FLIR because we have FLIRs that set up all night long and record camp in different locations. And I think at that time, and we had one in a meadow. I think at that time, sorry, that's my poor dog. We had 3 or 4 FLIRs that were running all night, and we didn't catch anything. So the next day, same thing, same place, same ridge, about the same time around dusk. Here we go again. Well, now we're ready. Okay, so we decide everybody's going to go to bed but me and Nathaniel because we're the 2 smallest people. Oh, and by the way, no fire, no campfire, and no light. We don't use any headlamps. If we do, they're red. We don't walk around with lights on. We don't usually have a campfire. If we do, we try to keep it low. I mean, so anyway, it starts up again. And all the guys are in their tents, but me and Nathaniel sitting in the dark, talking extremely loud, which is our plan. We want to actually bring attention to ourselves. And same thing. Now, the thing was, this night was a full moon. It was the blue moon, July 31st, August 1st. So it started at dark or at dusk, works its way down the mountain, and by 2 o'clock in the morning, we're just listening and recording and screaming and laughing and doing things like the Sierra Sound call, just goofing off. But we're doing research, we're talking, but we're trying to act like dumb campers.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, now there's 2 of them. One is sitting down at the edge of the meadow below us. Now, where we're at, it's like a 3-tiered campsite. There's an area below us in a tree line, and these are lodge pines, so there's no limbs till you get about 30 feet up the tree. So you can see everything underneath. And then behind us, there's about a 30, there's a slight slope upwards of a ridge or a berm behind us. And off to the right is a meadow, an elk meadow with a lot of activity in there. And I could tell there was one in the meadow because he never moved. He just would passively knock. But this big one that was on the ridge would move in closer and closer, and the knocks were like a home run, like a cracking bat. And it got so close, I knew I could follow where it was. I couldn't see it, but at one point it hit one of the trees so close to camp, the birds flew out of the tree. And I've got to go back and look at my records, but between 1 and 2 in the morning, and they flew over camp, and then I could tell it was going through the tree line. I could hear it. It didn't give a crap. At this point, it did not care if it made noise. It was almost like it was like, pay attention to me, But at the time, I kept thinking, this surely is not Bigfoot. This is an elk, I'm just I'm not scared, but I'm just focused on what in the heck is that and what's going on. But I can hear the movement, so I literally felt like I could see it, see the sound, but not see it at that point. I hear it move through, and Nathaniel and I are hearing it move through the wood line, and it's working its way around the back of my tent. It's just about 30 yards from us, and towards the one over in the meadow, kind of like going on the edge of the tree line. And all of a sudden, I hear this really weird noise, which is like and I'll do it for you, but it sounds like this. Like a pop. So like you pop a champagne bottle, And I'm like, what the heck? That's weird. But every time this big one would knock, I call it the big one because it was so powerful. The other one would knock back, but not right off the bat. Let's say it would go between 5 to 10 minutes, And it was always single knocks. There were never triples or any. It was just a single loud knock and then a single passive knock. Like the one in the meadow never moved, but the one was coming closer and closer, and you could tell it was close enough. It could see us. I know it could see us because I know from where the birds flew out of the tree, I know it's got a full view of us, but we didn't have a view of it. Anyway, after that popped, I'm watching and watching, you know, I know where the pop comes from, and all of a sudden, and the moonlight was just right, I see this figure just come out and in the tree line and glide its way down the embankment towards the meadow, and it's almost like I see it 3 times moving through the trees, and I said, what the F is that? And I'm staring, you know, into the darkness. Well, it wasn't dark. I mean, it was very bright with the moonlight. And Nathaniel says he looks at my hat, the brim of my hat, looks over, and he sees it too, but he sees it like I see it walk across at an angle downward, and it glides. Like it's moving fast, but I know it's not running. It's almost like, wow, that was quick, but it had to be big because for it to move that fast, the steps, the gate, all of that had to be gigantic, you know, for it to move that fast without running. I knew it wasn't running. It was just effortless and very, it was almost like it was a liquid type movement, just flowed, you know. But anyway, I was just like, what the F is that? And Nathaniel says, oh my God. And he sees it, but he sees it what I call the 4th frame, where it turns and he sees the back and he can see light between the arm and the side as it's walking down the hill. And because we're seeing like a silhouette, you know, or basically we're not seeing any hair. We're just seeing a figure, a silhouette. And then, you know, we're like, holy, what the heck? And then all of a sudden I realized, don't talk anymore, because here's my other issue with group research. I don't want either of us to pollute each other's thoughts on what we just saw. So I said, don't talk, just don't talk, let's not talk about it. I'm going to draw a picture of what I saw tomorrow, and I want you to do the same thing. I mean, mind you, there were some other things going on. I was kind of freaking out a bit. I was like, surely not. This is crazy. What the hell, you know? And so that's what we did. And we went and got everybody up and said, you know, we just saw something. And they were like, what? And we're kind of like, we can't talk about it. We're going to draw it tomorrow and be separately interviewed, take our measurements, and figure out if we really did see the same thing, and we did. I drew a picture the next day. He actually took his iPad and took a picture of where he saw it, and then drew in his creature, or what he saw, you know, his shape. And then we were interviewed separately, and then came together with the photos and did measurements and discussed and tried to hit every tree with every object we possibly could, and did everything we possibly could for a couple of days. And then we had a couple other things crazy happen. I think it was the next day. It was all quiet, no more tree knocks, done. You know, and that was what was weird. As soon as we saw it, everything stopped. No more. It was done. Whatever it was, it was done. It was satisfied.
How did you feel when you had this encounter, Shelly? How did you feel? What emotions went through you?
At first, I was not in belief, truly. I think I was, the other thing about being in these environments, I'm very aware that number one, I feel we all are looking for Bigfoot all the time because we've had an experience or we believe it, we're going out into the woods. So your mind's eye is constantly registering it's a face, like pareidolia, that's our survival instinct, from earthly man, So in the back of your mind, whether you realize it or not, you're always looking for Bigfoot, always. And so I'm very aware of that. So I'm constantly pushing myself not to be that person. I need to pull myself out and only look at what the facts are. So emotionally, at the moment, I'm in disbelief. My first order of action, discount everything else, Shelly. Was this an elk? It wasn't another human. Could it have been a human? I'm automatically saying, no. This isn't you, Shelly. Don't jump to that conclusion. You can't. So I'm in disbelief. I don't know. I had a lot of things going through my head. I wasn't scared. But then, I will say this. Mm-hmm. I was that girl that when I got there, I always threw my tent up in the tree line away from everybody else. And this thing walked behind my tent. We were on the other side of camp. So now I've got to go sleep in my tent, my little tiny 2-man tent on the ground in the tree line where it just walked past by myself.
And how did you feel about that? Were you okay about it, or was it a sleepless night for you, Shelly?
No, I didn't say anything to anybody at that moment. But I will tell you this.
What?
That was when I became uneasy. Before that, I was fine. I was more interested in discounting everything. I've got to judge this the right way. But once I realized where I was fixing to have to go, I wasn't about to admit that I had any emotional fear, which I did. So I got my tent. I always kept the windows open in my tent. I pulled my 45 out. I put my little red headlamp on, and I slept with my gun in my hand and covered my head up and went to sleep.
Yes, that was a difficult night for you. No, thank you for that. That was very, very useful. I'm conscious of the fact that we haven't got that long, and there's a couple of things I just want to touch on. So if you'll forgive me, I want to move on slightly from that. One of the things I talked about with Amy the other week was the nature of ladies in Bigfoot research. How do you feel the Bigfoot community receives you? Is it more positive? Are there more women getting into Bigfooting or less? What's the situation, Shelly?
Well, I think people are good with me as long as I'm being a good girl.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? When I'm being what they perceive as, well, first of all, most people assume women are emotionally invested in Bigfooting. That's a fact. I've been approached with the word, oh, wow, you really don't, you're not just, playing around. Most women, are not like you. And I'm like, right, I'm not that girl. They're okay with, most men will buck up to me online before they buck up to another guy. I think they're okay with it until they're not okay with it. If I speak up, which if you know me, I'm really not that girl that's going to say much online, but if you want to go round and round when we're in the field, we can. I always try to be a lady, but I'm not there spending thousands of dollars, taking months away from my children and my husband and my nieces and nephews and my friends at home to go out and listen to your perception or your, experience and your expertise as a woodsman in the woods. I'm just as qualified 99% of these guys, and I know it because I go out and I meet these people. The community likes us until they don't like what we have to say. And I can't talk for anybody else. I can only talk for me. I'm different. I'm not basic. I practice what I preach. I work very hard at being the best I can be for the species. And that's the most important thing. Yes, I want people to like me. I want to be friends with people. But at the end of the day, I may disagree with you, and if you can't get over it, then I'm moving on. You know, I don't listen to much of anything on the internet. I don't go to the internet for Bigfoot research. If anything, I go and entertain myself with, you know, silly videos about, you know, whatever. But the Bigfoot community, you know, this is the thing. When insanity met the internet, Bigfoot research went to hell. And I truly believe that. You know, I mean, because 90% of the things people come at us with is, hey, check this out. I've got, you know, this tree structure or this or that. And I'm like, who told you that's what Bigfoot does? And then they get upset. You know, they want me to agree. But the moment I disagree, then it becomes an issue. And instead of going, okay, yeah, you know, but I do have friends, I do have people that have been super supportive, men in general, you know, and women. I don't, you know, it's funny because women in the Bigfoot community, as a group of women, we are very supportive of each other. You don't see a lot of women being catty towards each other. You see more men being catty towards women. And I hate to say that, you know, I mean, but I don't see a lot of women. I'm sorry?
Say it as it is, Shelly. Say it as it is. Go for it.
Right. Well, I don't have a problem with saying it how it is. I mean, I'm not out to hurt anybody's feelings, but I can put together a solid group of women, and they're not going to be gossiping, you know? They're not going to be worried about what's going on with another woman. There's few of us that are on that same platform as far as being mentally disciplined and not emotionally invested in research as it being what it is because they say so. You know, I can change at any moment. My biggest accomplishment to me is when I go in the field and someone actually teaches me something. That to me is glorious. When I learn something, like simple things make all the difference. And that's part of that, what you don't know you didn't know. You know, it's like I know I don't know. The more I know, the more I learn, the less I know. And I feel women are more accepting of that because we don't have time. I'm 55 years old.
You're not 55. You're not 55.
I am.
35.
But
no.
You know,
yeah.
I'm not here to play. I've got things to do. Like I said, I take away money and time and lots of it from my family and friends because this is important to me. It's important to my family is very supportive. And I want to do justice by them by being a good, you know, I don't even like to call myself a researcher. I like to call myself a wilderness enthusiast, you know, or a conservationist. But I think it's important, and I think if I can be an example, or if I can just, you know, like my DNA kit, I'm not going to, you know, I don't think Bigfoot's going to be proven by my DNA kit. But if somewhere down the line it helps somebody and they found out that they have a new species of you know, wild hog or bobcat or coyote or coy wolf or red wolf in their area that was not known, that is a huge accomplishment to me. Those things matter. That's what
Absolutely.
I'm looking for.
And Shelly, we've run out of time. Love you to pieces.
Sorry.
We've run out of time. You've been an awesome guest, and it's been our privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Shelly Covington-Montana, a great researcher, totally passionate in the field, and without ego, and that's very important. One thing that comes across very clearly in what Shelly does is that she's interested in results, scientific analysis, and everything else is second, and she does have a very supportive family, so God bless them too. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you ever so much, Shelly, for being on the show. We really appreciate you on behalf of Mike and I. You've been a pleasure. We'll talk to you very soon, yeah? And tell Don to get that tequila loaded. We'll do that too, soon too. Thank you, Shelly.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen. Mike and I will be around for a new show very shortly. As ever, we'll put it up on Facebook. Thank you very much. Good evening.